The notification sound made my heart skip a beat. After 11 years of complete silence, there was Madison's name lighting up my phone screen. My golden child sister who had watched our parents destroy me without saying a single word in my defense. The girl who had everything handed to her while I fought for scraps of love and recognition. I stared at the message preview, my hands trembling slightly, as memories of that devastating night when I was 18 flooded back. The night I was forced to choose between my dignity and my family, and I chose to walk away with nothing but a suitcase and my broken heart. Before I share what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Now let me tell you how this unexpected message changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Growing up in the Thompson household meant living in Madison's shadow from the moment I could understand the difference between praise and criticism. She was 2 years younger, but somehow she had claimed the throne of my parents' affection before I even knew there was a competition. When Madison brought home a report card with mostly B's and 1 A, our parents, Richard and Susan, would celebrate with ice cream and proud phone calls to grandparents. When I brought home straight A's, they would glance at it and say something like, "That is what we expect from you, Erica," before turning their attention back to whatever Madison was doing. The disparity became more obvious as we grew older. Madison got piano lessons, dance classes, and art supplies whenever she showed the slightest interest in something new. I learned to play guitar by watching YouTube videos on the old computer in the basement, practicing with headphones so I would not disturb anyone. When Madison decided she wanted to quit piano after 6 months, our parents bought her a brand new easel and oil paints. When I asked for guitar lessons after playing self-taught for 2 years, they told me we could not afford extra activities for both of us. I became Madison's unofficial caretaker when I turned 12. Every day after school, I was responsible for picking her up, making sure she did her homework, and starting dinner before our parents got home from work. Madison learned quickly that she could get away with not doing her chores by simply ignoring them until I did them myself. Our parents never questioned why Madison's responsibilities somehow always ended up being my responsibilities too. One incident from when I was 14 still burns in my memory. Madison had been playing with our mother's antique jewelry box, a family heirloom passed down from our great-grandmother. She accidentally knocked it off the dresser and it shattered into pieces on the hardwood floor. When our parents came home to find the broken jewelry scattered everywhere, Madison immediately pointed at me and said I had been looking through Mom's things. I tried to explain what really happened, but Susan was already screaming at me about respecting other people's belongings. I was grounded for a month and had to pay for the jewelry box repair with money I'd been saving for a school trip. The pattern continued through high school. When I earned a full academic scholarship to the state university, our parents' response was lukewarm congratulations, followed by excitement about Madison placing second in a local piano competition. The scholarship represented years of hard work, late nights studying and maintaining perfect grades while working a part-time job at the local grocery store. Madison's second-place trophy represented 6 months of piano lessons that she attended when she felt like it. By my senior year, I had given up expecting equal treatment and focused on my escape plan. College would be my freedom from the suffocating dynamic that had shaped my entire childhood. I threw myself into volunteer work, joined Honor Society, and worked extra hours to save money for college expenses the scholarship would not cover. Meanwhile, Madison had discovered boys' parties and underage drinking. The irony was that the more Madison rebelled, the more our parents blamed me for being a bad influence. When she came home drunk at 15, they accused me of not watching her closely enough. When she started skipping classes, they said I should have been setting a better example. When she wrecked our mother's car while driving without a license, they somehow decided it was my fault for not preventing it, even though I had been at work during the incident. The night that changed everything happened 3 weeks before my high school graduation. I had just been named valedictorian, but our parents barely acknowledged the honor because Madison had been chosen to perform a solo at the spring concert. That evening, while our parents were at Madison's performance, she snuck out and went to a party. She came home after midnight, stumbling through the front door with bloodshot eyes and reeking of marijuana. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had seen suspicious activity and called the police when she noticed people coming and going from our house. When the officers arrived, they found Madison in possession of a small bag of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. In a moment of panic and self-preservation, Madison looked directly at me and told the officers the drugs belonged to her older sister who had been dealing to high school kids. I stood in our living room in my pajamas, staring at my little sister in complete disbelief as she destroyed my life to save herself. Our parents, who had rushed home from the concert, immediately believed Madison's story without question. They did not ask for my side of the story. They did not consider my character or track record. They simply accepted that their golden child was telling the truth, and their problematic older daughter was finally revealing her true nature. The argument that followed was the most painful conversation of my life. I begged them to believe me, reminding them of my clean record, my scholarship, my plans for college. I have been your daughter for 18 years. I pleaded through tears. Why do you not believe me even once? Richard looked at me with disgust and said, Madison would never lie to us. You have always been jealous and problematic. We should have seen this coming. Susan gave me an ultimatum that revealed everything I needed to know about my place in their family. Apologize to your sister and admit your fault, or leave this house tonight. Standing in that living room, looking at the three people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, I realized they never had. I was 18 years old, legally an adult, and I had a choice to make. I could lie, accept blame for something I did not do, and continue living in a family that would never value me equally. Or I could choose my dignity and my truth, even if it cost me everything. I choose to leave because I choose to keep my dignity. I told them, my voice steady despite my breaking heart. I packed my belongings in the rain while Madison watched from her bedroom window. She never came downstairs. She never tried to stop me. She never told our parents the truth. As I walked away from the only home I had ever known, carrying 2 suitcases and a backpack, I wondered if she felt even a moment of guilt for watching me lose my family to protect herself. For 11 years, I built a life without them. I worked my way through college, graduated with honors, and started a successful career as a graphic designer. I learned what healthy relationships looked like through friendships with people who valued honesty and loyalty. I went to therapy to understand why I had spent my childhood trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it equally. I thought I had made peace with never seeing any of them again. So when Madison's message appeared on my phone, my first instinct was to delete it without reading. But curiosity won over caution, and I found myself staring at words I never expected to see. Hi, Erica, this is Madison. I know I have no right to contact you after all these years, but I really need to talk. I have something important to tell you about what really happened. Could we please talk? For 2 days, I carried that message around like a weight in my chest. I discussed it with my best friend Sarah, who had heard enough stories about my family to have strong opinions about whether I should respond. What if this is just another manipulation? She asked, echoing my own fears. You have built such a good life for yourself. Do you really want to open that door again? But there was something in the tone of Madison's message that seemed different from the confident, entitled sister I remembered. The words felt humble, almost desperate. Against my better judgment, I decided to call her back. Madison's voice had changed. The carefree musical quality I remembered was gone, replaced by something tired and uncertain. When she answered the phone, there was a long pause before she whispered, Erica, I cannot believe you actually called me back. You said you had something important to tell me about what really happened. I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. I am listening. What came next was an apology I had given up hoping to ever hear. I know saying sorry does not fix anything, Madison began, but I need you to know that I have been living with guilt every single day since you left. I lied that night about the drugs. They were mine. I was scared and I threw you under the bus because I knew Mom and Dad would believe me over you. The confirmation of what I had always known should have felt like victory, but instead, it felt like reopening a wound that had never properly healed. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "I have been in therapy for 2 years," she continued. "My therapist helped me realize how toxic our family dynamic was and how wrong what happened to you really was. I realized that what our parents did to you was not normal. The way they treated you, the way they made you responsible for everything while I got away with everything. I destroyed my sister's life, and I have been living as the golden child built on lies." Madison's voice cracked as she continued talking. She told me about incidents I had never known, about moments when our parents had actively rewritten history to make me the villain in stories where I was not even present. She described overhearing Richard and Susan tell extended family that I had problems, and they had tried their best with me. She revealed that when people asked about me over the years, our parents would pretend they only had one daughter. "I started seeing how conditional their love really was," Madison explained. "After college, I gained some weight, and suddenly I was not the perfect daughter anymore. They started making comments about my appearance, my life choices, my career. I began to understand what it felt like to never be good enough for them, and I realized you had been living with that feeling your entire life." The conversation lasted for over 2 hours. Madison told me she was 26 years old and had no idea who she was outside of being their perfect daughter. She had no genuine friendships because she had been raised to believe she was better than everyone else. Her relationships with men had all failed because she had never learned to be authentic or vulnerable. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness," she said near the end of our call, "but I want to make things right. I am planning to cut ties with Mom and Dad. I cannot continue living this lie anymore." My first instinct was to protect myself. 11 years of healing had taught me to be careful about people who claimed they wanted to change. I talked to my therapist, Dr. Martinez, about Madison's call and the complicated emotions it had stirred up. "Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing what happened," Dr. Martinez reminded me. "It means freeing yourself from carrying their wrongs. You get to decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want to have with your sister, but you get to set the terms." I spent weeks thinking about whether Madison deserved a chance to prove she had changed. The scared, guilty person on the phone did not sound like the entitled teenager who had watched me get kicked out without saying a word, but I had learned not to trust my family's words without seeing their actions. When I finally agreed to meet Madison in person, I chose a neutral location where I could leave easily if things went badly. The coffee shop downtown where our mother used to take us as children seemed appropriate for a conversation about family and the past. Madison looked different than I remembered. She was thin in a way that suggested stress rather than health, and the confident glow I associated with being the golden child had faded. She was carrying a photo album which she placed on the table between us with shaking hands. "I kept all the pictures of us together," she said quietly. "Mom and Dad put them away after you left, but I took them. I could not stand the idea of pretending you never existed. Looking through those photos was like stepping back into a childhood I had spent years learning to reframe. There we were at Christmas morning when I was 8 and she was 6, and I had given her my favorite doll because she loved it more than I did. There was a picture from a summer vacation when Madison had taught me to braid hair sitting behind me on the hotel bed with intense concentration on her small face. I was a coward. Madison said, tears streaming down her face as we turned the pages. "I watched them hurt you, and I did nothing because I was scared of losing their love. I thought if I just stayed perfect enough, maybe they would love me the way I wanted them to love both of us." She showed me recent text messages from our parents, evidence of how they still tried to control every aspect of her life. They criticized her weight, her career choices, her apartment, her dating life. They only called when they needed something or when they wanted to show her off to their friends like a trophy. "They do not love me either," Madison realized out loud. "They love the idea of me, the version of me that makes them look good. But they have never actually known who I am, just like they never bothered to know who you are." Madison had already written the letter she planned to send our parents. She showed it to me, asking for my opinion on whether she should include more details or keep it simple. The letter was direct and honest. I can no longer pretend that what you did to Erica was acceptable. You destroyed your own daughter because she did not fit your perfect image. I was complicit in this, and I am deeply ashamed. I am cutting contact with you until you can acknowledge the harm you caused and make genuine amends. When Madison sent that letter, Richard and Susan's response was exactly what we both expected. They called her ungrateful. They threatened to disown her, too. They tried every manipulation tactic that had worked when we were children, but Madison had learned to recognize them through therapy. Her final text message to them was simple. Now you know how it feels to lose a daughter. The difference is, you chose to lose both of us. Our parents spent weeks trying different approaches to get Madison back under their control. They sent guilt-inducing messages about how much they loved her and missed her. They claimed I had poisoned her mind against them. They promised to work things out if she would just come home and stop listening to outside influences. Madison's response never wavered. The only poison was the lies you taught me about love and family. When our parents finally realized Madison was serious about cutting contact, they sent a barrage of angry messages calling both of us disturbed, ungrateful, and delusional. They insisted they had been loving parents who did their best with two difficult daughters. Even faced with losing both children, they could not take responsibility for their role in destroying our family. Rebuilding a relationship with Madison was not easy or automatic. Trust had to be earned slowly through consistent actions over time. We started with monthly coffee dates that gradually became weekly phone calls. Madison was working hard in therapy to understand her own toxic behaviors and the ways she had been taught to see herself as superior to others. One of the most meaningful gestures Madison made was paying me back money that had been stolen from my college fund. Our parents had given her cash gifts throughout college money that they claimed was from savings they had set aside for both of us. When Madison learned the truth about where that money had really come from, she insisted on returning every penny, even though it meant taking out loans to pay me back. Slowly, Madison began to learn about the life I had built without our family. She was genuinely amazed by my career success, my close friendships, and my healthy relationship with my boyfriend, Jake. "You built everything they said you could not," she told me one afternoon. "You are strong in ways I never learned to be." The healing process was not linear. Sometimes being around Madison triggered memories of childhood pain that I thought I had fully processed. Madison struggled with an identity crisis, having spent 26 years defining herself only in relation to our parents' expectations. But we worked through the difficult moments together, both committed to building something real and honest. A breakthrough moment came when we attended a mutual family friend's wedding together. An older relative who still had contact with our parents made a snide comment about me being the troublemaker who broke her mother's heart. Before I could respond, Madison stepped forward and calmly but firmly set the record straight about what had really happened in our family. Watching my little sister defend me publicly was healing in a way I had not expected. For the first time in my life, Madison had chosen to protect me instead of protecting herself. As our relationship grew stronger, I began to understand that forgiving Madison had benefited me more than it had benefited her. I let go of anger I had not even realized I was still carrying. I stopped defining myself by the family that had rejected me and started appreciating the family I had chosen for myself. My relationship with Jake became even stronger as I learned to trust that love could be unconditional. Seeing healthy family dynamics through his relatives taught me what normal looked like. I started taking risks in my career that I had been too afraid to take before launching my own freelance design business, and finally pursuing the artistic projects I had always been passionate about. Madison attended my first art gallery opening and brought several of her new friends to support me. Seeing my work displayed professionally surrounded by people who appreciated my talent felt like the ultimate proof that our parents had been wrong about everything. When Richard and Susan eventually tried to reconcile with both Madison and me, We made the decision together not to respond. We had both learned that we did not owe them our forgiveness or our presence. Some bridges once burned completely are not meant to be rebuilt. Madison and I created new traditions together, including an annual sisters trip to somewhere neither of us had been before. These trips became opportunities to explore the world and our relationship without the shadow of our shared trauma hanging over us. Family is not about blood. I learned to tell people who asked about my parents. It is about who shows up for you consistently with love and respect. Madison had finally learned to show up, and that made all the difference. The most unexpected outcome of our reconciliation was how it changed Madison's perspective on helping others. She began advocating for other golden children to examine their family dynamics and recognize when favoritism was actually a form of abuse for everyone involved. I had to lose everything I thought I wanted to find out who I actually am. Madison reflected during one of our recent conversations. Being the favorite child in a dysfunctional family is not actually a gift. It is a prison made of expectations and conditional love. Looking back on our journey, I realized the best revenge against people who tried to make you feel worthless is living a life full of worth. And sometimes, the most unexpected people can become your allies in that journey. Not every story of family dysfunction ends with reconciliation, and that is okay too. But sometimes the people who hurt you can surprise you by choosing to grow. The real victory was not needing Madison's apology to know my worth, but receiving it anyway. I had built a beautiful life without their validation, and that foundation was strong enough to withstand rebuilding a relationship with my sister on my own terms. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members, even when it meant losing everyone you thought you could count on? Have you experienced the golden child dynamic in your own family, either as the scapegoat or the favored child? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please hit that like button. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life family stories and share this video with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in their family struggles. Remember that your worth is not determined by people who cannot see your value, and sometimes the most important family is the one you choose for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you all the courage to choose your own dignity, whatever that looks like in your situation.